Welcome to the Play Chess Not Checkers podcast, where eye care goes to meet their heroes and learn how they turn a passion for eyes into a business of success. Today, I'm excited to be joined by the one, the only Dr. Will Toe. He is the man, the myth, the legend, my friend. You know, I started this off trying to ask some friends, come on, join with me. Come on here, have some conversations. We're going to try and keep this light. We're going to try and keep this airy. We're going to try and keep it fun. And I get to talk to my friends, so I'm excited. So clap it up, clap it up. Join me, Dr. Will Toe. So welcome to the stage.
All right,
Will,
Adam,
how you doing?
great to be here.
Yeah.
I love that introduction very much. So I like how you said mostly, because that's a very true statement. Mostly.
Hey, we're gonna be honest on this. There, we're not gonna lie. Me and you've been in trouble a few times, so it's okay. We've been in trouble. It's okay, but it's okay. I feel like if you're not shaking it up, you're not trying. You got to push the envelope. You got to see what, because now you know where the limit is, and me and you both know now there is a limit. We have now found some of the limits, and we're like, okay, bring it back. Like, bring it back 10%. We're just gonna bring it back. Now I got you. You know, no need for all the legal stuff. Let's bring it back 10%. We're good. But thanks for coming on here, man. I know it's early on your on your end of the woods here, but thanks for making time. And the first thing I want to start off with, I'm gonna have a truth moment.
All right.
When I first saw your IG page, I thought it said the traveling God.
Yeah.
Because you can't capitalize.
Yeah.
I'm like, who is this guy? Because this is like you were still in school, so you hadn't graduated yet. So I'm like, yo, that is a top level Instagram page, because you were traveling all the time, like you were posting traveling stuff when you were in school, and I was like, man, shout out to you. Like, tip my hat to you, because I was like, man, the traveling God, what a name. It's not until like later when I met you, you was like, no, it's traveling OD. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. A lot more sense.
Oh yeah. So the funny thing is, it actually started off as a hashtag first. And that's fine. You can capitalize those. So it's more obvious that it was the traveling OD. And then at some point, people are like, man, you travel so much, you might as well just make that your whole username, you know, your Instagram handle and everything else. So I did. And then you realize exactly what you said. You can't capitalize. And I didn't think about that at first. You just kind of copy, paste, and move forward. And then everybody starts messaging you, especially people who meet you for the first time. They're like, pretty much same reaction. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna roll with it, because might as well.
Let's go. Hey, listen, man, it's not bad. It was good. Hey, it goes with your personality. At the end of the day, you got to think of yourself highly. And I was like, this guy really, he really thinks I'm top notch. And I'm like, this is my kind of guy. I got to meet this guy. So I want people to get to know you, because I feel like you burst onto the scene and you were the man from day one. But what's your hobbies outside of eye care? Not eye care related. What does Will do for fun?
Oh, that's a tough question, because I like to meet people. That's my big thing. And actually, I'm sorry to say that I'll go back to optometry just for a little bit here, because that's actually what brought me into optometry as well too. I didn't grow up wanting to be an optometrist. In fact, prior to me going to optometry school, I had only been to do an optometrist one time in my life. My prescription right now, nope, I'm not wearing contacts or anything. I never had refractive surgery. I'm a plus 50, minus 50 in both eyes. So never went to an eye doctor, because why would I, right? And so for me, it was one of those situations that I actually wanted to be a dentist, kind of going into it, just because it was interesting to me. I wanted to help people. I wanted to own my own practice, you know, be my own boss, that type of thing. And I applied for dental school. I did not get into dental school. And so I had another year to kind of figure that out. And I just happened to have a conversation with my brother, who at that time had just spent the summer being an optician at a local practice. And he told me, hey, you ever think about optometry? Because once again, you like meeting people. You like talking to people, you want to help people, and you get to be your own boss if you're an optometrist. And as I said, I had never even thought about it. I barely understood what optometry was at that time. And this is me basically, you know, about to graduate undergraduate, or just graduated undergraduate. And I looked into it. And because of that, it became that moment where it's like, oh yeah, I could do that, because in dental, it's a one-sided conversation. So for me, it's being able to talk to people, joke around, and have a good time, help people. It made sense. So my thing is, like, I just like meeting people. That's what I think. Um, what I love to do more than anything else. I don't care where I'm at. So when I travel, I often tell people the best thing I like to do, more than anything else, is to just sit at a bar, or a lounge or something, and just talk to people around you, because you just get to know people. You get to know local culture. You get to understand where people are different, but also how we're all very much the same, no matter which part of the country or which part of the world we're from. Right? We all have very similar core values, and the way we see the world may be slightly different because of how we grew up, but we all care about each other. We all care about certain things the same way, and I really love just doing that. Meeting people, above all else, meeting different kind of people, just saying hi. And I'm not saying you got to be best friends with everybody in the world, but just that's why the travel thing was it's so powerful to me. Right? You just get to go around and just see the world and meet different people. So that's what I like to do above all else. And so the environment doesn't matter. So whether we're in as a bar, as I mentioned, a lounge, whether I'm in a cafe, whether I'm in a nightclub, right? It really doesn't matter. So I like to do a lot of different things, because for me, I appreciate the world. I appreciate being able to live the life that I live. I'm certainly privileged, and I understand that. But my life was not always been this way. So going a little bit deeper right here, since you said people, you wanted people to get to know me, I definitely did not grow up the way I'm living my life now. I spent actually most of my life in welfare, because my family, my parents were immigrants, lived around the poverty line or just below the poverty line most of my life. So I know what it's like to be at that level as well too, where there's not a lot of opportunity. So it's credit to my parents for really working hard, working multiple jobs. And I'm the youngest of four. So being able to raise four kids at that level, and get to a point where, I became a doctor. I have another one of my brothers who became a doctor, and my other two siblings are in tech, and they're doing very, very well too. The credit to them for raising us the right way and getting us this opportunity. But I never ever get to a point where I don't appreciate where I'm at, for sure. But one of the beautiful things in life is that we all come from different backgrounds. We all had struggles. We all do different things, and we're all able to get to a point where we can find happiness in our lives. And so for me, it's like, it's a hard question to answer, because what do I do for fun? It's like, I do kind of everything. I do kind of whatever I want. And I love to work, because I love optometry. I appreciate what it's done for me in my life, my family, all these type of things. So I tell people all the time, it's really weird. It's really cliche, but it's Sunday. Today it's Sunday. Right now we're talking.
Yeah.
Right before I jumped on here, I was on my computer, because I had all these ideas I came up with. So I was writing them down on my notes, just thinking, man, I can't wait to go to work tomorrow to try out some of these ideas. So I do love the optometry side too. It's not just work to me. It's a passion, for sure.
I love it. I love it. I love it. The reason I asked this is because my wife challenged me a couple months back when I was kind of stressed out. And, I was like, well, it's easy for you because you play, she plays the guitar and she can sing, and she does all these different things. She's like, so what is your hobby? And I struggled coming up with something for myself that I truly enjoy, that I'm making the time to enjoy. Like, because if it's really your hobby, you're going to make the time for it. Nobody has to beg you to do something that you are passionate about. And I was struggling, and it just took me a while. I'm finding new things, and I'm reinvesting this year into finding myself and to finding what does Adam actually enjoy. So I'm asking all my friends, and the same way you struggled to give me an answer, a lot of everybody else is struggling with the same thing. So I love that. Okay. I love that.
Well,
now you gave me
that, because if you want me to answer more simply, I guess, like, what are my simple pleasures, right? That's probably a good question too, because as I said, I can name 100 different things I like to do or could do, right? But I'll be honest with you, like, I mean, I like to sing. I don't play an instrument. I actually was
Are you doing karaoke? If we're doing karaoke night, are you going
better than karaoke? I'll tell you that. Most people don't know, but I used to be in choir for a while. I did jazz choir, I did gospel choir, all these type of things. So I can sing quite well. I'm not going to get on American Idol anytime soon, but
oh, okay. Now we know if anybody's doing a party and you get a mic, give Will the mic. Everybody that's watching this, say we're giving Will the mic. So we're learning about people here.
You can do that.
Everybody I'm interviewing on this, they've been on other podcasts, they've done stuff. My goal is to get some stuff that they haven't said anywhere else that people don't know. We're gonna learn some new things.
Well, you got me on that one because I don't think I've ever told anybody that, or very few people know that. But
all right, now we're learning.
Choir, jazz choir, all these type of things. You give me a microphone, you're gonna have to pry it out of my cold dead hands.
All right, nice. I went to see Yolanda Adams in concert yesterday, and she did an amazing job. She stood 10 toes down and just sang for like 2 hours straight. It was wonderful hearing somebody who hasn't lost her voice 30 years later. So I love that. I love that sort of thing. So all right, we're learning here. So now you're giving me a lot into your origin story, and this is what I'm trying to get to, because I feel like people's past, it molds them as a person. And sometimes you see people do stuff or say things and you don't know where that comes from, right? But it all comes from somewhere. So getting to know people's origin stories really does, it really helps you understand somebody, because without the backstory, it's hard to understand people. Now, you gave me some of your origin story. Now, you told me before you were an optician before you went to optometry school, but you just said you tried to go to dental school. That didn't work out. You got a new passion. Where was the opticianary part, and how long was that before optometry school started? Like, give me that timeline.
A little bit more timeline. Yeah. So, when my brother told me, consider optometry, and I looked into it, and I'm like, it has a lot of similarities. And once again, I get to know people a little bit better. Dental is a very one-way conversation, as we say, right? They talk to you, you're like, oh, okay. So, but I didn't have all the prerequisites because they're slightly different, and if you don't do that, okay, I got to take a couple more classes, simple ones, a local community college type of thing, just to get those prereqs in. And then I wanted to make sure I understood it well. So at that time, I graduated in 2009 from undergraduate, which is right around the recession. So, 2008, 2009. And I remember it was a really weird moment to be graduating around that time, because even at our undergrad graduation, they said, this is going to be pretty tough. It's a tough time. All the jobs out there basically have 30 to 40 people applying per job, which is this is the worst economic recession since the Great Depression. They said that at our graduation speech, which is not very inspiring to do. So their recommendation was just trying to tell people, like, hey, just understand the world is tough right now. And, if you want to do things like go back to school, all that stuff, we highly encourage that. Like, that's what they told us at graduation, which is a very interesting, way to, transition you into the world. There was so I wanted to try optometry, and I didn't know anything about it. So I just looked around locally, what's available. And I actually ended up working at the front desk at a practice down in San Diego. I went to UC San Diego for undergraduate, and I just did front desk because that's all it was. And I was a UC graduate, and I got paid $10 an hour. It was great. Not a lot of money, but you kind of take what you can get sometimes. And I wanted to learn the craft. So the money wasn't as important. Obviously, I need to be able to, put a roof over my head and pay my bills. But at the same time, I knew that what I was trying to be was more important. So I'll take the little sacrifices up front, pay my dues, that type of thing. Worked at the front desk, learned insurance, learned how to do authorizations, all that kind of stuff, scheduling, understand the flow of a practice. After a few months of that, they basically said, you're too qualified for this job. Let's teach you how to be a technician, get you more involved in the actual patient care. And I did that, taking, Optomap photos, autorefractor, all the basic stuff, even from back then. Same thing. Once you get your flow going, it's like, okay, you figure out your scripts, how to talk to people, how to convince them to, opt in for certain types of things, specialty testing. And then after a few months of that, they go, yeah, you're pretty good at this stuff too. Do you want to learn to be an optician? And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about it. I've never done any sales job before, but let's try it, right? And then what's interesting, is that to me kind of opened up the whole world, because you realize that opticianry if you don't know anything about it, you just think, oh, this person's a salesperson, but it's really not that. And it's no disrespect to any of the opticians who may be listening to this, but a lot of people do think that way, right? Because they just don't know any better. But when you realize that sales is a part of opticianry, it's one of the responsibilities, but it's bigger than that. It's about educating. It's about helping people. It's like figuring out what their needs are, their lifestyles, and giving them a tool to help with that need. And the tool just happens to be eyewear or contacts or whatnot. So I really dove in on that quite a bit. And I tell people all the time that I could have just stayed an optician probably my whole life and been very happy too. I really loved it because it was fun for me as well too. You get to know people, you talk to them, you try to help them the best way you can. And so I did that. I ended up doing that for a few years, even though I didn't need to, because once again, I did my prereqs, which took about a year, a couple extra classes, and I could have just reapplied at that point. But I love the opticianry so much, I ended up doing it for another couple of years.
How many years was that? How many years was that before you actually applied to optometry school?
So about 2 years, and then I applied, and you have to wait a little bit longer. So we'll say 2.5 years or so total. But in that 2.5 years, I really felt like I learned so much. And even though I was just an optician, or just learning to be an optician at that point, I really knew I wanted to potentially even own my own practice at that time, because I know in some states you're allowed to do that. California not be one of those, but you just never know where you could end up. And so I wanted to learn all of it. So running a practice, the administrative side, helping out where I can, because as I said, this is something that was so fascinating to me, for something that I barely knew was a career a couple of years before. Remember, I said I'd only been to an optometry office one time basically in my life. And so I did kind of feel like I hit a point with the opticianry where I think I've learned most of what I need to. Obviously, I don't know everything. It's not like I had my ABO, kind of certification at that point. And then there's the advanced, and then there's the master certification, right? I was like, I could go that route, but I do feel like I'm hitting a wall of where I feel like I can grow. And that's where I started kind of looking back into, maybe I should go be an optometrist. Right. So I looked into that. I already had done the prereqs at this point. So it was just a matter of applying. And I did, got in, and that's kind of what led to everything here. So I felt like those experiences of me learning all these things and really understanding it allowed me to really thrive, because I already knew from day one. I remember telling people, and people would laugh at me a little bit, like, I know what I want. I know the practice I want. I know every aspect. I can build a practice in my mind right now. And I know exactly how to run. I know exactly what frame brands. I know the lenses. I know all the aspects of the business from day one of optometry school. And I remember people were joking with me like, okay, sure. Haha, like everybody thinks they're good at this stuff. So I almost wanted to, I knew it. And then the 4 years of optometry school is like, now, okay, let me get to that point. And now I can show people like, this is what I was telling you this whole time. Like, I already know this stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Now, did you get licensed as an optician?
Not right away, but I eventually did.
When did you do that? Like, when was that?
My second year of optometry school, because
so you were in optometry school, and that's what I'm trying to pull out of you. You were in optometry school, and then you got your opticianry license in optometry school,
right? Because I was still, during the summers would come back and still
working.
Work. Or not, I guess you only really get that first summer, right?
Right.
Second year, and then whenever I would come home, I would try to see if I could work back at where I was. Hey, can you, if you have a few days, you need some help, because I still want to keep learning, right? Mm-hmm. Once again, the mistake you people make is when you think you know everything, right? And then you stop learning, you stop growing, you become complacent. So my thing was, every time I came back, hey, I have a few extra days, you need some help. Right. And once again, it wasn't about the money. It was just about making sure I maintained certain skills, and I wanted to keep growing in not just as a doctor, but as an optician too. So I got my certification, and it was funny because in second year, that's when you start learning the optometry stuff, right? Our first year is more of the general, kind of catching you up, making sure you're good on the biology fundamentals, chemistry, all that kind of stuff. And when I was in our optics class, and I was talking to the professor, Dr. Lee. He's amazing, by the way. And when I was chatting with him, he's like, you probably know more than I do about this stuff. And he let me be a TA for the class that I was in.
That's nice. That's nice.
He's like, there's no real
How hard was that test?
Here.
How hard was that opticianry test? Because I know most doctors have never taken that test. So how
Yeah.
hard was the optician test?
I mean, I think if you just try to take it now, thinking, "Oh, I know all this stuff because I'm a doctor," you'll fail. But it won't
Yeah,
take you long
yeah.
to.
I'm helping my staffer. Well, one of my staffers do it now, and
Yeah,
they're asking them stuff about RGPs. They're asking them stuff about optics. They're asking them
yep,
stuff. They're asking them some serious
mhm,
things. I'm like,
yep,
okay, like
yeah.
this is not. It's not nothing. Especially in a licensed state. So California is an optician licensed state.
You don't need it, no.
Yeah, in Florida you don't need it, but it's there. But to dispense, you need it. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's there. Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Well, that
well, on that, yeah, I think the biggest thing that'll throw people off is the prism stuff, because even doctors aren't great at prism, right? So it's all the apprentice rule and those things. And I
yep,
remember the other
yep.
thing that threw me off quite a bit was, when they talk about doing adjustments, dispensing, right? So you walk into your mini lab, you have a set of tools that you use for various things, for to repairs and adjustments of frames. Now, I don't know the name of the tools. I just know this is the tool for this is the tool for this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
who cares what the name is?
Right.
But on the test, they'll
You
say,
didn't know
"Hey,
the
this
names. Yeah.
happens to a frame. Which tool do you use?" And you just look at these names. I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I know it in my mind. I know what it looks like, but I didn't
Right.
know the
Right.
name of it, and so that'll throw you off too. So that's where you have to be a little bit careful. Where having the practical life experience of doing it doesn't just translate to you automatically passing the test. I mean, it's not a hard test, but it's one of those things where you just have to know a lot of things, a lot of little bit
Mm-hmm.
things, and that's what can throw people off. Right. The only hard concept I would say that you definitely have to make sure you understand is apprentice rule and decentration stuff. That's about it. But that's more of, for doctors, it would be a kind of give me a few days to review it. For an optician who's not used uh, to any prism, you might need a whole week or two just for that concept to understand it well. That's about it.
Nice.
I think it's a good
Nice.
test to
Nice.
take. That one, NCLE, all those type of things, get your staff more invested
Yeah.
in the profession, and even for yourself too. This is not a disrespect to any of my staff or any opticians out there, but you hear some stories every once in a while where people say, "Oh, I let my opticians kind of run the practice, my office manager, and then if they were to just leave tomorrow, I don't know what would happen." So you almost feel
Mm-hmm.
like you get put in this bad position of where you're almost held hostage by your own staff, because if
Yep.
certain key people left, it would be very
You'd be in
detrimental
trouble.
to
Yeah.
practice. But you don't have to do this stuff all the time, but you should have a basic understanding of how this stuff works. Because if you need to jump in and train, or you need to, um, you know, uh, take over a certain responsibility for your manager who's on vacation for 2 weeks, you can do that without severely hurting your practice. And so I'm always a part of that as well too. Even though I'm so busy with all my practices, whenever we hire somebody new in an optician role, I actually spend the first 2 hours training them myself, because I like to be like, "Hey, I was an optician. I know what it's like. So I'm going to sit here and I kind of show you why we do things the way we do on this level." And kind of share them some of the stories I just told you right now, before I get into, like, here's the details. Here's what you need to remember. I'm going to give you an overview of everything. Don't memorize anything right now. Just listen for 2 hours, every aspect of frame, lenses, contact lenses, everything you need to know. Okay. Now you'll take the next few weeks on everything I just told you in 2 hours. Take your time, because it's not hard. It's just a lot of little things that you need to understand to do this job well and to really thrive for that. So I like to always do that, because that's where I came from. And I do tell people I think like an optician sometimes way more than I think like a doctor for certain aspects, because that's where I came from. Right.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about your experience at Western University, and where was your
Oh,
favorite place to go around campus? So, where was around the campus? Where did you go?
yeah.
How'd you like it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
give me your experience
Oh,
over there.
you probably have a better answer if you ask my classmates. I was definitely the more eccentric, like do whatever you want type of guy, the little bit of the black sheep. Not necessarily in a bad way, but once again, I came in day one knowing what I wanted for the next 20 years, and knowing exactly how I would build a practice and do all these things. Not everyone goes into optometry school like that. Even by the time they end optometry school, they're not like that. So certainly, as you kind of said, people had very strong opinions of me, I would say, good and bad. But I think for the most part is, I definitely know, people have told me in the beginning I came off a little bit too, like, this guy's kind of cocky and he thinks he knows everything. But as they got to know me, they're like, "Oh, he kind of does know most things," because he's done it before. Because as I said, a lot of people didn't even come from optician role, or they never worked in a practice. They may be shadowed for a week or two, and that's their full extent of, understanding how a practice works. And I've had people even now recently, in 10 years later, almost 10 years later, 9 years later, I guess, after graduation, that I have not heard since optometry school, who actually reached out in the last few weeks saying, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I've been watching what you've been doing online. You're doing amazing things for optometry. And now I'm at a point where I'm ready to open up my practice, and I understand all the stuff you were talking about when we were students. Can you help? And can I ask you a few things? And of course, I'm going to help my classmates and anybody, even if you weren't my classmate. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I would be I would basically, when I was in class, I slept a lot in class. Let's say that. That we did at Western, they did record all of the lectures. I tried to be there for most of them, but I also would, some of them are very early, and I'm not an early morning type of guy, 8 a.m. lecture type of guy. So I would try to be there, but I would often doze off, I will say, but I kind of hide in the middle. I understood that the professors kind of watched, the people in the front, and then you have the people who kind of hide in the back, but the professors will pick on the people in the back because they know you're trying to hide. So if you kind of hide in the middle, that's your best bet.
You're blending in. Your goal was to blend in.
Exactly. But I will say for me, it's just, I felt like because I liked it so much, I understood it well. So I didn't need as much, I wasn't the guy who grinded in the library for 10 hours a day, right? I was the one that I'd go to lecture. I wouldn't take a ton of notes. I'd just listen. And then on the recording later at home that day or at the end of the week, I'd rewatch it with my notes, kind of taking my time, that type of thing. So it didn't seem like I was studying and paying attention all the time, but I did go out quite a bit. And that's where people probably judged me a little bit on that too. But it wasn't like, hey, let's go party every night. It was like, hey, after lecture, let's grab one beer type of thing. Because I felt like, you need a little bit of that mixed in. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy and get burned out. One of the things I learned when I was an optician, when I was watching a lot of other doctors, when I was meeting a lot of doctors, and is there is a sad truth about, I guess, the world and not just our profession, is that you can be the best and the smartest doctor, but if you're not personable and you're not somebody people like being around, you will probably not do as well. Versus if you're just a good doctor, right? I'm not saying being a bad doctor, but you're average, slightly above average, decent, good doctor, not amazing, but you're really, really outgoing. You're good with people. You tell really good jokes. You're kind of just fun to be around. You will be highly successful. So I knew that it was important to develop social skills along with, my practical skills and my scientific knowledge of optometry. And that's why I always felt like, hey, let's go out and let's, as I said, we don't have to party for all night type of thing. But I was often the guy that tried to get people to go out more and just say, hey, let's go grab a bite. Let's, chat. Let's go grab a beer. Let's go grab a coffee. Anybody, right? Let's just hang out, because it's good for us to talk about stuff. And, whether we talk about optometry or something else, it doesn't matter. So I will say I definitely have the reputation of, man, he goes out all the time. How's he able to do that?
He likes to have a good time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would say you were because I graduated in 2012. You graduated in 2016?
Yeah.
So I would say there are different waves and segments of docs. So I graduated in 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you were on social media while you were in optometry school.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw you it was after I graduated, but you were just now going into school.
Yeah.
But then when I was seeing you on social media, I wasn't sure if you had graduated yet or if you were still in school, because I looked at the name. I would see you posting and doing stuff. I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like you were in that next wave. Like I graduated in 2012, then you came out. But when you came out, you hit the ground running. And I was like, hold on, I thought I was the new guy on campus, come out with the new ideas. And here you came zooming past. You were like, all right, I'm ready to go. Let's go. You're on the sideline. Let's go. And you came out. And I think there's so much to learn from each wave.
Yeah.
But I feel like the 2010 to 2015 was one wave. The 2016 to 2020, 2021 was one wave. It was another wave of docs, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm waiting to see what does that 2021 to 2026,
Yeah.
wave of students or new docs that graduated in that period there. How do they change the profession? Because I feel like my wave did some things with the profession, right?
Mm-hmm.
You came out in your class and your cohort, you guys did your own thing, bringing it into the profession.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see what does this next round, because of COVID and all the other stuff, a lot of those students that graduated at that time, they kind of didn't hit the ground running as much
Right.
as me and you did,
Right.
because it was a COVID-y. You had to slow down. You had to take a pause, right? But now I'm excited to see how does that group change eye care? How does that group change, the profession of optometry, and what new little sauce they bring to it that makes this profession even better. So I'm excited to see those different waves have the impact.
I think you're right in that sense, but I think it'll be very drastically different than when you and I may recognize, because as you said, yeah, they're growing up through COVID, or they went through school through COVID, which is a drastically different experience.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me, and why you probably felt and other people felt like, who is this guy, right? Yeah, is because I showed up everywhere. I actually will tell people what's interesting is I counted this kind of towards the end of my time as a student, because I like to collect the badges when I go to conferences and seminars, right? I keep them. I toss them. It's like a mini souvenir for me. And when I got to the end of optometry school, I realized I had gone to over 40 conferences as a student. And not all of them are the national ones, right? Regional,
Right.
all that stuff. Sometimes it's just like a half day or a couple hour seminar type of thing. But I had over 40 of them and I know because I kept the badges. So I had every single one in this little box. And so when people were like, how people thought I was doing everything, is because I just put myself out there, because
right.
you and I both know this. When we go to a conference and you see somebody for the first time, you may or may not remember that person because you meet like 100 people a day there. Right. But then the next time you go to a conference and you see that same person, you're like, oh, hey, it's that one guy or that one woman that I saw last time. And you'll talk to them more because you remember them a little bit. And then when you see them for the third time, you're like, okay, I need to know this person because they keep popping up, right? I keep seeing them everywhere I go. And that to me is part of that, the more you're there, the more you're present, the more people will want to gravitate towards you because you're doing something that's different than other people don't. And I think you and I had the privilege of doing that. But you're right. The new generation didn't because of COVID. It really drastically changed how people interact with each other. And even though we're not in it anymore, there's still the dynamic has changed. So I think some of the new generation, the current students or new graduates I see, I'm really impressed by some of the stuff they're doing on TikTok and on Instagram, because it's stuff that I never would have thought of, or I just wasn't able to because the resources and the tools were not available before. But I think they're just doing it in their own way, right? They're finding their own way to make an impact that may not be recognizable to me and you because we did a more traditional route. And I'm really fascinated. The one thing I will say is that the hard part is just keeping it going, because when you're a student, you don't have a lot of money. And even though you're studying all the time, you still have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. When you're a doctor, you don't have a lot of time. You have money, or you don't have as much time. And so you see a lot of people who are very involved, whether they in AOA, local societies, very outgoing as students, and then the moment they graduate, they kind of disappear off the face of the earth, which is fine, right? You do your thing, you do what makes the most sense for your life and yourself and your family. But that's where sometimes I get a little bit sad, I guess. Maybe not the best word, but you see what I mean? You're like, wow, this person had so much going, they had that momentum, and then they just literally disappeared.
You thought they were going to be. I think this is where you got to recapture those people and bring that back in. And me and you both got to start with this organization, and I want you to talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
But the Transitions Academy with the Change Agent program. So I was in there before. Then you came in. And then when you came in, I was like, all right, they don't need me anymore. They got Will. So then I kind of took a step back, but I did that for like 5 years. And it was a great start for any student or any new graduate that's out there. I would say if you want to get out there and you want to start speaking, you want to get exposed, you want to get to meet people, that Transition Change Agent program was really good. I think this is the last year they did it, or they're doing it. But hopefully they bring it back, or another company does something similar. But tell me about your experience. I know what my experience was, but tell me about your experience.
Well, with transitions, when they asked me to be a change agent, that was a pretty exciting moment because once again, I'm doing my own thing, and I'm not necessarily doing it just so I can get these special sponsorships and endorsements or speaking opportunities. At least not in the beginning, right? You're just doing it because it's fun and you just want to create content and you hope that people enjoy what you put out there. And then when it becomes a little bit more official, it's like, oh, wow, this is cool. Like, this is nice. Mm-hmm. And some of these opportunities, of course, don't pay. Some of them do, but it's really not about that, at least in the beginning, right? It really is just being part of something special. And I think Transitions, great company. We use their lenses or their photochromic lenses quite a bit in our practice now. The people are just, it's such good energy. And a big part of this is, as you mentioned, we're all a little bit different because we all grew up differently. We all have different experiences of life. But when you're surrounded by people who help grow you in that sense, that's what I think Transitions Academy did, or Transitions in general, but being a change agent for Transitions did. And when you attend the academy, you're just surrounded by more like-minded people who don't just we don't judge, we don't compare, we're not trying to one up each other. No, we all have these really great discussions where it's like, how do we grow from here? How do we keep going? How do we keep doing more? And you need to keep doing that. And that's where I think Transitions Academy was great for me, because this is some of the first time I met a lot of the people that you may comment on, you follow them on Instagram, and then you never actually met them. But when you do, you realize, wow, these people are amazing. They're not just a personality behind the screen that they might be pretending, right? They're actually really good people, and good people you should know, good people you should surround yourself with. So I'm glad that Transitions did that. They brought great people together, right? Because that's all you really need to do. There doesn't need to be a workshop or a lecture. Just bring people together, put them in the same room, and let them just start talking and just, riffing off each other, vibing off each other, and just coming up with all these amazing ideas, which I think they did an amazing job doing. Now, what was interesting is I kind of started feeling the same thing you did, because after a few years of that, you just realize, like, okay, it's, I still want to be a part of it, and I'm still glad I'm meeting people, but it is also one of those things where it's like, I don't want to overstay my welcome. And I think you do want to make sure you make room for a lot of other new people, because you don't want to deprive anybody else who's up and coming from that experience as well too. So I still like, as I said, I still really like Transitions. I'm not a change agent. When I told them, I don't know if I'm going to do this again, it wasn't because there was a malicious type of thing. It was like, I think I contributed where I could. I think I got a lot out of it where I could, but let me get out of the way, because let's get new blood in here, right? Get more people in, because it is one of the earliest and easiest ways up and coming people can get their name out there in the industry.
Get a start.
Right? Yep. And I don't need that anymore, but I'll still help where I can. If you ask me, you want my opinion, I'm still going to help out, because I still want to make sure a program like that continues to thrive. But I think that's one of the things that's interesting. Like, you say a lot of yes to everybody in the beginning, because you're just trying to figure out where you belong. And at some point you can be a little bit more picky, and dedicate your time where you feel like you can make a bigger difference.
I tell people my yeses are expensive, because every time I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you say yes to everything, because you don't know if you're going to get another opportunity. Right. And I think the Transitions Change Agent program was really good. It was a really good program to start. And a lot of the people that I hang out with at Vision Expo and I see these conferences, I met them from that Transitions Change Agent program and from the Transitions Academy, when we had time to connect and engage. But like you said, I came, I was in there, then people like you came after me, and I was like, hey, these people are better at this than me, and they need the opportunity. And then you got the opportunity, and then you moved out of the way so somebody else can get another opportunity, which I think is a good thing.
I'm going to correct you right there. I don't think I'm better than you. No, not I mean that, right? You said we're all different, right? We have different perspectives. We all learn from each other. It's a give and take, right? But I do appreciate the whole, like, pay it forward type of thing, because I'm very much about that. People taught me. I don't owe anybody who taught me stuff, but I always like to make sure the next generation gets that and then some. But I will say one of the first really special moments I had with you, actually, is when we did a panel discussion together at Vision Expo. And I remember it was in one of the suites. It wasn't out on the exhibit hall.
Yep, I remember.
Suites. And I remember sitting there, and it's not like you were a stranger to me. I knew who you were, and I knew you were good, but I never actually heard you talk about your practice and practice management and your mindset. And I remember being on that panel 3 feet away from you and thinking, I wish I had a pen and paper right now, because the stuff that you were telling them and you were saying in that panel was so, it was gold. I was so thrown by how everything that you mentioned was so high level and so meticulously thought of. And I'm like, I don't know if I belong on this panel with you.
No.
I was wanting to be in the audience being like, oh my God, this is amazing. I really like,
I remember that.
I remember turning to that after you finished speaking, and I said to the audience, I'm like, I hope you all understand that what Adam just said right there, I would have paid thousands of dollars for that information if I was just a doctor in the audience right now. It was so amazing. And so don't discredit yourself there, right? You know a lot, you've done a lot. And I don't ever compare this like, hey, Adam, you're get out of the way. I'm the new hot shot in town. It's not like that. It really isn't. Some people have that perspective because some people are just a little bit competitive, which is fine for them. But I think we're more collaborative than we are competitive in this space. And I would never look at this and say, oh, I'm better than anybody else. I know different things. And so when we kind of talk to each other, that's why I said all we have to do is get into a room together. Mm-hmm. No agenda. Just
we can all learn
an hour, 2 hours, and just let people talk. And you'd be surprised the stuff that we all come up with that I would never have thought of. You would never have thought of, and anybody else that we have in this room. So I will say you've definitely taught me many, many things. Throughout the entire time we've known each other.
Appreciate that. Now, first question is, who is your mentor?
Oh,
because you
Adam Ramsey.
Because you came in knowing so much. Like today, that's why I'm trying to understand you, right? Because you only had one eye exam before optometry school. You were trying to go to dental school. Then you go into optometry school. You were sleeping in class and you kind of knew you figured your way through that.
Yeah.
And then the reason I'm asking that is because you hit the ground running so fast for somebody who didn't have that much of a history in eye care before, besides the years of opticianry. And because I felt like the way you were thinking and what you were doing was so far ahead of where most people were. I'm still trying to figure out where'd you get it from? Because it's almost like LeBron coming into the NBA and everybody's like, he's a freak of nature. How is he that good that young? You are one of the people where it baffles my mind because I'm like, who did you learn it from? Where did you get it from? Because you hit the ground running so fast, so quickly. So who was your mentors? Where did you get this stuff from?
So I'm gonna make a big correction for you right there. First of all, I'm a Warriors fan, so you say Steph Curry, you don't say LeBron to me.
But Steph didn't start off good though. He had them weak ankles and stuff.
He did.
My analogy has to do with the start. The finish might be good by Steph, but the start wasn't.
Yeah. And we almost cut him. We almost kept Monte Ellis instead of
almost. That would have been a bad idea. That would have been bad.
Yeah, the GM almost got fired for making that decision to keep Steph instead, but. That's all history at this point. So
right.
That the answer to that question about my mentors will depend on which part of my life you're talking about. And I think that's what, if you were to have me make a list, it'd be a very long list, right? And there's different aspects of different things that people have taught me throughout, even before I was a student, while I'm a student, new graduate, and to where I'm at right now. So long list. So the first thing I will say is, talk to everybody. And that's where I've already said that from the start, right? Talk to as many people, learn from as many people as you can. But two important things: learn what to do, learn what not to do. Because you will talk to people and they will tell you, this is what I do, this is what I believe will help make you successful. And in your mind, you're saying, oh, that one or two things, yep, that's good. And these 10 things, that's terrible. And that's okay. We all do our own thing, and some things make sense more regionally or at a different time period, or different modalities. So what I did from the start was, this is back before we have all these apps and all these things now. I just kept a running list, pen and paper, that I kept for 4 years as a student, of ideas that I hear from every doctor. So I'd write down this for my practice, this is the idea, one sentence, two sentences, and I put a date and I'm say which doctor taught me that, right? And I make a running list. And I had it, and it was several hundred ideas by the time I got to the end of 4 years of good ideas and bad ideas. So both, right? And with people, I've always said that to people: don't just take my word as gospel. Please do not do that. I do what makes sense for me. But if I can give you 1 or 2 points, learn that, and then also learn the stuff that you're like, Will does it, I'm never going to do that because that sounds like a terrible idea. So do both, right? So going back to that mentor, I do feel like I've been very fortunate because I've never been surrounded by doctors who are pessimistic about the profession, at least not anytime early on or towards the middle of the process of the journey. So I've always been around people who said, this is a great profession. This is amazing. You can do amazing things. It's very flexible. You want to work part-time. You want to work full-time. You want to have 10 practices. You want to have 1. You want to have a sublease. You want to have 100 practices. Sky's the limit. So I've always been lucky to be surrounded by those doctors early on, which I think helped mold me more than anything else. If you ask me, I'll give you 3 mentors who I always say they have given me probably more than anybody else, but you can also blame them for me turning out this way, right? And it's going to be Neil Brujic. He's amazing. He's done a lot for me. Dave Kading, right? So Neil Brujic, he's over in the Ohio area, Bowling Green, Ohio. Dave Kading up in the Seattle area, and Amir Kushnevis, who's over in North Carolina. If you want to say those 3, I met them early on when I was first years, and they probably helped guide me more than any other doctors, putting me on the correct path. And then every time I have an opportunity to see them and talk to them, every time they lecture, I always jump in on those. I don't care if I just saw them 2 weeks ago in lecture. I'm going to sit down on their lectures again, because there's always something that you're going to find, some kind of gem that you're going to take with you. And by far, those 3 are going to be the ones that help me understand optometry the way I do now. Now, that being said, I can name 100 people if I wanted to, because while they helped me understand the potential of optometry, where I could be, I would say that there was more important that I met the right people who also helped me understand what it was, and to make sure to have that right compassion as well, because it's not just about us talking how to maximize every dollar, right? There's the business side of optometry, there's the clinical side, but there's also kind of like the heart and soul of optometry, which people probably don't talk about as much. So I feel like I was lucky to have the right people as well who taught me that. So probably the first true mentor I had was the doctor who I worked for down in San Diego, the one where I worked at the front desk, technician, optician, right? And it's Dr. Suzanne Lee. And she's down there still, North San Diego County. And she told me, I think watching her and listening to her and seeing how she interacts with patients, seeing how she interacts with her staff, you could see that there was a love there. She didn't make the most money, right? This practice, you can look at it and say, wow, you can put in all these new protocols, make it more efficient, but she wasn't about that. She just truly had a love for optometry, and she truly had a love for taking care of people. And I think it was really important that I was around that in the beginning, because as much as people always say, oh, Will's a good business person and he understands how to make money, that's important, right? Just like as you said, sales was important as an optician, but it's also just important to understand you're truly taking care of people, and you're truly helping people. You're truly making a difference in people's lives. And so that was, I think, an important moment to me, to be surrounded by those type of doctors too, not just the ones who will teach me how to be a great practice owner, right? Because you need that balance. You really do. You really do. And I'll say it all the time. There are hundreds of doctors, thousands of doctors who are probably better business people than me. I say it all the time. I'm a terrible business person in a lot of ways, because I will make a human decision every single time over a business decision, every single time. And I make those decisions every day, where we probably don't make as much money because we're actually doing what's right for the patient. And that's not always the best business decision. I'm not saying they're opposites, because that would be terrible. You can't run a practice if you're just giving away services, or you're not focusing on keeping the growing and keeping the lights on and paying your staff. You need to do that. But I don't think that's what I'm best at. Other people think that's what I'm best at.
I think you go from idea to implementation the fastest. That is the secret thing that I see from afar of you, is that most docs take too long in the conceptualizing phase, in the thinking about it phase. You go from, I had this idea in the shower, to Monday morning we're doing it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where
yeah.
a lot of the other docs have that same idea in the shower, and they talk to 12 people and they let 12 people talk them out of it. And
Yep.
you go from idea to I'm just doing it and don't talk to anybody and just do it. And then after it's done, people are like, why'd you do that? Da, da, da. And then you just do it. And I think
Yeah.
to me, from the outside looking in, that has to me been your secret sauce and what I've seen, get from what I've
Yeah.
seen. And that's just my opinion.
No. Yep, I hear you. So actually, it's funny is I had that conversation with somebody earlier this week, actually, because when we talked about like what makes me different, what do I feel I do different that puts me at an advantage, and it's exactly that. I'm not afraid to take risks, and I don't. I'm not saying I don't talk about stuff with people, but I certainly like to do action as quickly as possible. So going into kind of a side thing, I actually saw this video from a last month or from a few months ago, a couple months ago, from the CEO of NVIDIA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they asked him about, obviously, the potential of the business. Tech moves considerably faster than healthcare, right? And even then, they have their shortcomings. And they asked, like, what do you think is really the big difference between how the way you run NVIDIA and say how Mark Zuckerberg runs Meta and Jeff Bezos runs Amazon and how Elon Musk runs Tesla, right? And he actually said what's interesting in his perspective is as the CEO of NVIDIA. He's like, actually, I feel like I do run the company very similar to Mark and to Jeff, Amazon and Meta. We do things at a very high level at a very high speed. But he was actually saying that the thing that makes Elon Musk different from the rest of us is that he's faster. He's better because he's faster. And politics aside, of course, we can always, that's a separate whole thing. But just when we're talking about being running a high level tech company, the CEO of NVIDIA said most of the projects that we do at a quick speed usually have a 2-month turnaround. Right? We have long-term projects that maybe take a couple of years, but 2 months is where for generally a regular size project from start to finish. That's our implementation to our actionable time. And he said the difference is that Elon Musk, when it comes to Tesla and all the other companies, he does things within a week or two. And because he doesn't talk to anybody, he just doesn't. He just expects you to follow him. And it's kind of similar to that sense. I think one of the things that I've had an advantage over other people is I grew up in Silicon Valley. Right. All of my family, except for me, is in tech. The far majority of my friends are in tech. So I got to grow up around that. And I could have very easily been a software engineer and probably done pretty well there, but I didn't want to do that. But I'm surrounded by all the time. All the family conversations are about that stuff. So you get to see how that industry moves. And I've always criticized healthcare as a whole because of that. Now I understand the need. We can't do everything too fast, but what I disdain about eye care and healthcare is that we as a profession allow things to be so slow because we don't demand it to be better. What I mean by that is, let's just say in IBM or Intel or Apple, they develop a new microchip. Well, they'll say, look, compared to the previous generation, this microchip is 10 times faster in terms of processing power. It's about half the size, so we made it even smaller. And because we're able to be more efficient with how we developed it, it's half the cost. That's how innovation happens. That's what happens in tech. That's why they grow at the exponential levels that they do with those companies. But when we look at healthcare and optometry, we don't grow that way. We grow so incrementally slow, it's actually stunting our growth. So let's look at, say, retinal cameras, right? I buy a new retinal camera, or I'm looking at one today. Let's just say I go check out different companies. This retinal camera, compared to the previous generation, is probably only going to be about 10% better resolution. It's going to be hopefully about the same size, but sometimes they make it bigger, right? Right. But it's going to be about the same size. But they also make it like 50% more expensive because it has more features and it's better. And we just go, oh, that's amazing. Take my money, right? So we allowed them to innovate at such a low level by giving us such little change, 10% better resolution, but it costs 50% more. It should be the opposite. We should make it. Why aren't you able to develop products that are smaller, faster, better, cheaper? Because that's true innovation. That doesn't happen in healthcare, and especially in eye care as much. So I often look for those type of things when I look at my practice. It's not how do we grow 5%? How do we go 5% faster? It's like, how do we go 10 times faster? 5 times, like a noticeable amount. Let's invest in those things. Let's sign up for those business subscriptions. Let's develop those protocols. Here's a good question. Here's a good example right here. I was talking to my associates about this last year because I got a little bit upset at them because when I invested in automated for opters, like I spent a ton of money. I renovated all the exam rooms. I upgraded from the manual to the automated because I'm like, these are better. It's better for our shoulders or back. It makes us more efficient, right? And I do. I'm playing around. I'm faster. But after using it for about a year, we're like, well, it is more efficient. We understand the integrations are better, but what have we done with that extra time that we save? So let's just say you save an extra 2 to 4 minutes per exam every day because of having better equipment. Well, all that meant was even myself a little bit. So I'm not going to say I wasn't doing it myself, is that you had a little bit more time in between patients. And what did you do with that time? Well, I'm just going to play on my phone until the next patient's ready. Right? Or I might chart a little bit if I didn't finish that. But what we did was we created more efficient systems to give ourselves more time, and then we wasted that time anyways. You see what I mean? So if you're going to do this, you're going to find a way. And I'm not saying we did this just so that we could see more patients, although that's what you can do because you can probably fit in an extra patient or two while not feeling like you're working more. But I'm saying if we did this for a reason. So we have to take that time and the efficiency that we save and utilize that in a way that helps grow the business, not just I get to relax a little bit more, right? That's what we don't do as a profession. So that's where I would like to say, when it comes to what you're saying, the speed thing, it does matter. But even if you're fast to implement, you still got to make sure that the time you saved, you do something with it, because otherwise you're just going to waste that time you saved anyways. And that's where I'm a little bit different. I'm like, let's go on next project. My staff has often accused me of when we're done, learning something, implementing something new. The breathing room is like a day. Then we're on to the next thing. Right?
On to the next thing.
Yeah.
Love it.
And you should know that by me. I've been doing this for 5 years now. I'm like this. You get a breather for a little bit and then let's go, because let's keep going. Why would we stop? Why would we allow ourselves to become complacent? And that's actually what, when I used to lecture a lot more to students and new grads, that would be the first way I opened up my conversations, my lectures, is I would say, do you know what's the dirtiest word in the English language? Right? It starts with the letter C. You let their minds go where they go, right? Right. And change, right? Because it's the one thing everybody knows is going to happen, but it's the one thing everybody hates. And it's often tied to another dirty C word, which is the word complacent. And that's the killer that will be the killer of the profession. It'll be the killer of your practice, and that'll be the killer of your life too, is when you yourself just become, accept like, this is just who I am. This is how I'm going to be. My life's not going to be any different 20 years from now. I don't think that's a good thing. I'm not saying you always have to be on the move and not be happy and accept where you're at, but I also feel like you have to always try to be like, how can I be better than I was yesterday or a week ago or a month ago or a year ago? And if you are the same as you were a year ago in every aspect, I don't know, that would bother me, right? That would bother me quite a bit.
Love it. Now we're gonna get to we're plugging right along here. You're teeing me up here a little bit, but when did you come up with the idea for optical illusions? And was the name of the practice you bought Optical Illusions the first one, or did you rename it right off the bat?
Yeah. No, it was the name of the practice before. So I bought that practice.
You bought that and then you carried that on. Okay. Yeah. Where did you come up with the concept besides buying that initial practice?
Yeah.
Where did you come up with the concept that you then carried out over all the other practices?
Yeah. So that's actually the perfect question, because it actually pulls from what I just said. Because once again, I wanted to make optometry something special. I mean, once again, no disrespect for people who are in subleases or working for corporate or private equity, because I understood what optometry was a little bit before that, working, and I got to see the beauty of optometry. I got to understand where the potential of optometry was. And so when I took over, and I love the name, because I think there's a lot of depth to the word optical illusions when it comes to optometry. but I also wanted to show people like this could be something really beautiful because, and the practices I'm at, most of them are in shopping centers, which I do like. I like being around that environment. I like the foot traffic. I like the energy that people have going into it. And I thought they were kind of our pillars of optical illusions revolved around high level eye care, premium luxury eyewear, and then also advanced technology. And that's where I say moving in that Silicon Valley mindset that I grew up with really is that extra piece that people were missing. It's like, let's do this at a high level. Let's impress people. Let's show people that optometry isn't just, I bought an equipment 20 years ago and I'm still using it today. Because while people may not care or may not believe they care, the moment you do get a new piece of equipment, how many times do your patients comment on it? Wow, that's new. Oh, hey, we never did that last year. And they do really like the fact that you do that. And it's not to say if you don't do it, you're in trouble, because clearly there are many practices that don't upgrade as when they can. But I think there is a beauty of being the one who's always, every time you come in, there may be something new for you to try, because I want to show you how amazing your eyes are and the amazing things I can do for your eyes. So that's always been kind of the way I portrayed it. And once again, I like being in shopping centers because I think that's where you can access the most people. And I actually love the fact that there are places like Lens Crafters and Warby Parkers around me. In fact, I have a very good relationship with all the Lens Crafters and Warby Parkers. I often go by to say hi when they have their anniversaries. I'll drop off a box of crumble cookies because I want to be a good neighbor too, right? Mm-hmm. But I do believe there's a place for all of us, and I do really love the concept of like the good, better, best. Maybe Warby's kind of the good, Lens Crafters that mid tier better, and then Optical Illusions is the best. And when I was back when I was an optician, the one practice I always respected the most back then was OSA, Optical Shop of Aspen. I thought they were doing it the right way. It was such a great concept, and it was a high level luxury practice, which unfortunately did not survive to today. I think there was 50 plus of them 15 years ago, and now there's only like one or two left. And another practice concept which I really liked, or optical concept, was Ilori, and that was a Luxottica thing. Yep. And I remember the first time I walked into an Ilori, and I was blown away. I did not know optometry or opticals could look like that, right? I don't think it was.
Why do you think that one didn't work? What was the issue? Because I worked at a Lens Crafters for 4 years, and that was upstairs. Yeah. So I went up there, and they used to have all the high-end stuff. Yep. Why do you think that didn't work?
I think it does work. I think it's harder. It's the same reason why you're actually seeing a lot more of Target opticals popping up than Lens Crafters, right? And I've talked to some Essilor Luxottica people.
Is it the foot traffic that you have in the Target optical, the built-in foot traffic?
A little bit, but remember, Lens Crafters are mostly in malls, which you have that as well too. But it's just the efficiency of the system. From what I was told, and I don't know how accurate this is, a Target optical makes 80% the amount of revenue that a Lens Crafters does on average, right? Which is, you're like, okay, that's significant, but it only costs about half as much overhead to operate. So it's actually a more efficient and more profitable
system. It's cheaper space in a Target than in a mall.
Yeah, it's considerably cheaper, and as I said, it's easier to run, smaller footprint. The Target opticals are not big, but they still, once again, if you can do 80% the business of the Lens Crafters at 50%. The overhead costs, you're way ahead.
Yeah.
And so that's why you're seeing those pop up a lot more, which, so I understand they're making more business decisions in that sense. If they're not going for better, they're going for easy, which that's their prerogative to do. And they are opening new Lens Crafters. So it's not like they've gotten rid of that concept, but they're certainly not at the level they're trying to open up Target opticals all across the country. So I think that's where that is. When we look at where we're trying to exist at the luxury, the premium, the high quality, that is not easy to do. It takes more effort. Now you get more return, but it still takes more effort. And when you're trying to scale, that's always the problem, is that I will put in the time and energy that it takes to run a practice at a high level and produce a lot, but I can't be everywhere. And when you start creating that structure of you're spread thin, or you just can't be there all the time, you have to trust the systems. And it's the same way. I look at my associates, they don't make anywhere near the amount of revenue per patient that I do. But that doesn't mean they're failing either. I just have to understand that as I scaled, that's what would happen. And I have to accept that. So, but I still want to make sure they maintain a high level, because we're not here to cater to, the good, right? or the better. We're trying to be the best in any area that we're at, which I feel like we've done a fairly good job at.
Now, what is your thoughts on buying practices versus opening cold? And you've done both.
Yeah.
So if you could choose one route, which
Yeah.
route are you choosing?
Yeah, right. Near 100% of the time, I will buy a practice at this point. Dealing with contractors, dealing with that's all these the build outs, the delays, the issues that happen. That's a headache that I never want to go back to if I can help it, right? So, but I think it also depends on your stage in your career and what you think you know or where you're at, because you're never going to know everything about running a practice because there's always new stuff. But if you feel very confident and you're good at where you're at, then hit the ground running, buy a practice and just take off with it. And that's my first practice was that. And then for people who like, I need to learn as I go, cold start makes sense. It's excellent because you're not going to see the volume. So, and you're not going to have everybody there, all the different staff and all the different pieces yet, but you'll figure out what you like and you'll figure out what works for you. And a big part of it is that you will know this stuff. As I mentioned earlier, that's an important thing. I know virtually every aspect of the practice, and I know how to do virtually every job, every responsibility. I know how to pull insurance. I can bill. I can calculate co-pays. I can buy frames. I can sell frames. I can do lenses. I can edge lenses. I don't do it, but I know how to do it. And so the beauty of doing a cold start is that you're going to be the one doing it, so that when you learn it and you learn it the way that you want it, then you teach it to the staff. And the staff will do it your way. And versus when you buy a practice, that's a little bit harder because they already have established protocols, and you are going to be the guy that's saying, hey, I know you've been doing this for a few years. Now we're going to do it this way. That is harder in that sense, but it's because it works, right? And it's better. And it's probably a better system than what the previous owner had. That's why you're replacing it, right? And so where are you in your knowledge? Where is your comfort zone? If you feel like you're good, buy a practice. And as I said, go, increase the revenue by 40-50% in your first year, because that's what's going to happen, right? Because you're going to do everything that the previous owner did and then some, which will make it better. But if you don't think you have that, it's okay. Not everyone does, right? And then so take your time, learn it as you go. And that's what cold starts are great for.
Now, my next question is, if you want to have a luxury eyewear store, right? Mm-hmm. And you have these two options. Yep. You have an optician store that you then have to add exams to. So normally they're getting outside prescriptions, right? Yeah. Or you could buy a regular optometrist office and try and make that luxurious. Which one is Will choosing? An optician store that didn't have exams before, but you're going to start doing exams there. Or the average mom and pop optometrist office, and then you're going to add Cartier to it and make it luxurious. Which one are you choosing?
The easier one is the high-end optical, because all you're doing is by building the services, you're feeding the optical more, and you're providing more stability and consistency in the amount of people they can see every day, right? But because the mindset of finding the bright people who believe in high quality eye care and eyewear is much harder than to have someone who's more service-based, medical-based, and trying to convince them that they also need to buy products on top of that, which they might feel is a tool rather than an accessory, right? So, but there's no wrong answer. For instance, my practice up in Alaska, that was certainly more medical-based. They were probably 60% medical and only about 30 to 40% vision. And one of the things that when I was talking to the previous owner, the conversation, he's like, I never understood optical well enough to really build it. So it has a lot of potential. And I saw that as well too. And so he's like, if you just keep the medical part the same and you just add more pieces to the optical, you could really make it thrive, which we've definitely been able to do. It is a longer process though. But for instance, for them, I think the most expensive thing they had when I walked in the door was Silhouette, which is not bad for a more medical-based practice, but they weren't selling that all day. They were basically selling Charmant titaniums, which are about $300 frames, $250, $300. Once again, not terrible, but not a luxury practice. But today, you go in that practice, we have Gucci, we have Saint Laurent. I'm about to bring in Lindbergh. We have talks about bringing in, or we just brought in Prada. We're probably going to bring in Cartier next year. So, and then I bought that practice 3 years ago. So it's not impossible. It just, I feel like it just takes a little bit of time. You have to nurture it, and you have to get people to understand that there's a beauty in having high quality eye care that's matched with high quality eyewear. They go hand in hand. It's like if you're gonna buy the brand new Mercedes and you get a cloth interior, I will be pissed at you. You better get that all leather interior, get all the bells and whistles. And that's kind of what it feels like sometimes, is that they respect the people respect the services side, because they're like, you're a doctor, you're taking care of me. But it's like, if you do that and then you go somewhere else and you buy a cheap pair of glasses, it's almost like, what was the point of going to a high quality eye care doctor if you're just going to get the cheapest eyewear? Because there's so many issues that are going to happen in translation when there's a mismatch.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you are like literally, it's almost like my notes here, because my next question was about the Alaska office.
Yeah.
Now, you and me are alike in that it's and this is from me knowing a little of the backstory. It's almost like if somebody tells you can't do something, that's what you go and try and do, right?
Yeah.
Now, my next thing to you is, I'm going to challenge you and say you can't open an office in Hawaii.
Oh,
because I'm just saying that's the difference. But it's not there. So I'm challenging. I'm saying you can't do it. Yeah. You got plans, but you can't make it happen. Yeah. You can't pull it off, Will. You've maxed out. You've maxed out. Hawaii can't happen. It's all I'm calling out right now, because somebody poked you in Alaska happened. So now I'm saying Hawaii's not going to happen. You've been talking about it. It's not happening. Is all I'm saying. I'm going to be the guy that said that.
The reason it's not happening right now, or hasn't happened, has more to do with the fact that I'm trying to spend more time with my family more than my ambitions, right? And I think that's a sentiment a lot of people can understand. And
this is the married man talking.
It
the
is.
Single Will would have never said that. Never in a million years a single will say that. Because you're the guy that I was supposed to go do a bachelor party for. We were planning to do it in Vegas at Vision Expo West, and you took that away from us. All the guys are like, you stole our opportunity to have the bachelor party and popped up and got married right away. And now you're saying Hawaii isn't going to happen. I
didn't say Hawaii. I didn't say Hawaii isn't going to happen. I said Hawaii didn't already happen for that reason. But there's still stuff that's slowly in motion, because
you want to stay married. Okay, you don't want to piss the wife off. All right, can she hear me right
divorce
now?
Is more expensive than anything I can do.
It definitely is. Can she hear me right now? And she's like, we're not doing that. Is she listening to us right now? You're looking at her right now. I know she can hear this. Tell her I'm sorry. Okay, we will play nice for a little bit longer. We'll play nice for a little bit longer.
But I will say, look, on that note though, just because people have asked me, like, so what's the end goal, right? You have 7 right now.
Man, you are on my paper. I mean, you are on my paper. I typed them up. You guys, I typed up these questions like he is on my paper, like literally. I'm here, but go ahead. You're answering one more.
You do right there. Here's my little notes from it. I'm on a little post-it note.
I'm the host. I'm supposed to plan. I'm supposed to plan. This is I came prepared. I didn't come to play. I came prepared.
Yeah. So 7 practices. I have 3 in California, 1 in Alaska that are just me. I have 3 in New York City that are with partners. So I'm technically an owner, but I don't do it very much or almost no day-to-day type of thing, right? It was more of they needed some seed money, and they also every once in a while they need advice. They want me to look at some paperwork and see where I could help build the practice. I'll do that kind of stuff. So, but I'm very hands off on those. But people have asked me, like, so what's your end goal? And I will tell you, if you asked me when I was a student, even though I had all these ambitions and I knew what I wanted, I thought it would take me 20 years to get to where I'm at right now. So I've gotten there much faster. And every time I set a goal and I'm like, okay, this might take 5 years. And then with 1 year, I'm like, oh, okay, I hit that goal already. So I'm not, where do I keep going from here? Is it 20, 50, 100? I mean, I know a guy who's based out of Cleveland who owns 100 practices in the Midwest. So I'm certainly not, anywhere near his level yet.
100? I thought the guy in Chicago had the most. 100?
He's 100, over 100 wow. practices at this point. Yeah, he has a whole operation that's basically built just like Luxottica with all the different tiers, regional, market hubs, all these type of things, different levels of business structures. Over 100 practices in the Midwest, based out of Cleveland, but kind of in the surrounding states as well too. So Is that going to be me? I don't know. Well, I will say that obviously, the problem is I really want my practices to be at a very high level, and I'm very much involved with all of the ones on the West Coast. And I don't want us to be just cookie cutter, right? As I said, I want us to be the best. And so in terms of what we provide. So I know that if I keep trying to scale, it keeps getting split a little bit, right? And the attention gets split. And so I've considered franchising. I've talked to some people about that. And that would be a great way that I can help scale quite quickly. And then as long as I have these franchise rules and all these type of things, they at least have to somewhat follow the rules and not try to decrease and the brand at it, or try to take shortcuts and to detriment the brand. That's a possibility as well too. And that's where I was talking to when you say like Hawaii and other places. I'm like, it's a possibility. It might not be me, the main person controlling it, right? It could be a franchise, but that's been something that multiple people have asked me about. Would you ever franchise? Because I would probably like to follow your model, and I don't want to do all the work up front if you've already done it. And then other people who are not doctors but executives of VSP, Essel Exotica, and they're like, hey, if you ever get to that level and you're ready, let me know. I want to join that team, right? Because I know how to do it at this level. I want to help you do it and grow with you, type of thing. And I'm like, okay, when I'm at that point, I'll make sure to reach out to you.
Now, where are your thoughts on teleoptometry? Because I know you're doing that.
Yeah.
And do you think we will ever get to the point where we can do an eye exam on a phone? Because right now, during COVID, everybody was trying to have the patient be at home because they couldn't come in, right?
Yep.
And trying to do it. And we were like, hey, that's not going to happen. And post-COVID, it ended up being the doctor could be at home and the patient had to come in, because we weren't even thinking about it in that way. We were trying to get the patient to be able to do the eye exam from their house. And then we turned around, and after COVID came out of COVID, where the doctor is in their basketball shorts and the patient still has to go into the office. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you think the patient being at home is a real possibility?
So first, to add on to what you say, near 100% of the time when I'm doing telehealth, I'm definitely wearing basketball shorts. Near 100% of the time, right? Because I only need to be dressed from this point.
Here up. That's all we're going with.
As long as I don't stand up to reach for something, you'll never know.
Once we don't stand up, we'll get in trouble. All right.
So I do believe telehealth is the future. It's a very controversial subject. And even myself, with the amount of kind of goodwill I've built in the profession, when I talk about telehealth, oh man, I've never seen the mud slinging at me any more than I have talking about this, because it's such people are so scared, and for understandable reasons. They're scared of telehealth and what it could mean. And I think it is not necessarily like, in my opinion, it's not necessarily like, oh, it's bad healthcare. I think it's because people are generally scared I will be replaced. And that's why they push back against telehealth. Because the truth is, it solves so much of our problems just in the version that we have now, right? Because when 50% of the doctors, when you ask them, how do you feel about optometry, and the amount of, they'll say, too many doctors, too many schools opening up. We're gonna shoot ourselves in the foot like pharmacy did or law did, and all these things, right? And then you talk to the other 50%, and they go, I've been trying to find an associate for 3-4 years, like nonstop, and I can't find anybody. So we don't have a saturation issue. We have a distribution issue. I've always said that from the start, for many, many years, even before telehealth became a thing. All the new grads want to live in the cities where there's good food, good entertainment. There's a variety of places to go and hang out. And why wouldn't they? They worked hard. They want that life. They deserve it. But if every doctor wants to do that, the system doesn't work. Right. And that's why rural places pay a lot more. That's why their scope is higher and things like that, because the need is there. So if you can do telehealth and you can do it right, you fix our distribution issue. You can live in the city, enjoy the amazing variety of food, the nightlife, the concerts, but you can still see patients in rural parts of the country and still take care of them. At this point, I believe the technology is great enough that I can do near almost every type of patient condition, whether it's primary care, dry eye, red eyes, disease management, glaucoma, macular degeneration, diabetic care. Pretty much the only thing I can't do at this point is, of course, like a foreign body removal, right? For obvious reasons. But I think near everything else, there's probably, we used to be very conservative when we first started because we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't put ourselves in a bad position in case we felt we oversold our telehealth abilities. But after about 3 months, we basically lifted all restrictions, and we said we can pretty much see everything, and the things that we can't will at least help triage, right? Because that's important too, because you can usually get in to an optometrist faster than you can get into a ophthalmologist, and the ER is considerably more expensive, right? So we can at least help triage the things that we can't do. Now with telehealth on a phone, I don't sure in the future, but that might be like 30 years out, right? What I think may happen in the next 5 years, possibly, if we do it right, maybe 10 at most, is not necessarily doing an eye exam on your phone, but maybe on a VR headset. Because that would be, I think, can be done where you can basically put on a headset and we will meet in virtual reality, and I can do a lot of things. Because you look at the direction where a lot of these equipment companies are going, it's all VR headsets, right? We're putting the software in there, and the headset doesn't matter necessarily the brand, but once we get the right software, we can get a lot of information there. And we can bring it all together, and we can collect data, and as clinicians, we can interpret that data for our patients. So doing a refraction via virtual reality, yeah, I believe we can do that. Scanning your eyes with the right technology to OCT, visual fields, yeah, I think we can do that. Red eye analysis, checking, maybe you can't fluorescein stain when you're at home, but I can definitely see a lot. You have the patient look in different gazes. You kind of have them, direct them with a certain software. I think there's a lot of things we can do with telehealth with a VR headset. I think that's coming because you can see that's the direction a lot of the equipment's heading in the last couple of years. And I think they're going to invest in that more. And I've often talked to them. It's funny how we're at this point where a lot of us have like 3 or 4 headsets now. It's like, how about stop trying to sell me the headset because I have one, just get me the software.
Sell me the program. Yeah, almost like a PlayStation. Yeah. That's what I told him. I says, hey, let me just buy the headset, and then I buy the headset from the manufacturer with that same person you're buying it from, and let my warranty be with that person. Yep. And then I'm just buying the programs that I can load and go through. Absolutely. And when I told that to one of the manufacturers, one of the owners of the companies, they looked at me puzzled, like I never thought of that. And I was like, why the heck did you not think of that? Like this should be a thing you think about.
Sounds like you should be a KOL for that, because you just set them up for the next 10 years.
Tell them, come on, let's go, bring it on. All right, we're landing this plane here. Where do you feel like is the best place you've traveled to? Because you travel a lot, and maybe other people don't travel as much.
Yeah.
So where should somebody else that wants to travel go that you feel like, hey, this got to be a place that if you're not going to travel, if you're going to travel somewhere, this has to be the place. Where, when, what's the place that the traveling God tells everybody to go?
Oh, well, this is going to be a little cliche, but I'm going to have to put that Tokyo. Got to be Tokyo. Because you will walk into Tokyo and within hours, you will tell yourself, why isn't America like this? Why does it feel like they're so far ahead of us in terms of the way that their infrastructure is, the way that they live their lives? And it's not like it's super expensive to live there. The food is cheap, living is cheap. Now, certain things may be expensive because they still live on an island, right? But it's like going to Tokyo is like walking 10 years into the future, and you're just like, this is what I almost wish America was in a lot of senses. And I've said this to people, like, they must be so disappointed when they visit us, especially my area, right, in the Bay Area, because it's like Silicon Valley. This is where technology is king. And they come in like, oh, this is interesting. This is like down compared to what we're used to in our day-to-day, right? Because we should have flying cars and all this stuff by now, right?
Right.
I remember when I first went to visit Tokyo, I've been there twice, but when I went there in 2017, it was pre-COVID, so the world was definitely different. I think they're a little bit more relaxed and casual compared to before. I remember at one point, everyone talks about their train system, the subway system, right? It's so efficient and it's perfect. There was a moment where I remember there was a delay of one of the trains happening during rush hour of 45 seconds. It was a 45-second delay. And that same night, the CEO of the train company went on national news to apologize to the people of Tokyo for that 45-second delay. That's how much of a big deal that was.
Wow.
That would never happen here.
Never. 45-minute delay is nothing. You need 45 days of a delay for you.
Right. And you look at when they have like huge like potholes and like damage to their roads, for us, it can take several weeks or even a month to fix, right? And for them, it's like a day. A day later, it looked like this damage never happened. So there's a interesting culture there of pride in their work, pride in their lives, pride in what they do that we don't quite have. And it's not necessarily for them just about money. It's just about being in a place where they have a love for where they live and they want to make sure it's the most beautiful and best place ever. So that to me is one of those things that for many other places, you'll have fun, you'll have a good time. When you go to Tokyo, is one of those places that you will seriously consider within a few days, should I cancel my return trip and live here forever? Because I could see myself. It's not because it's like a beautiful resort with clear water. It's like because I could actually see myself living.
I want to go for the blossoms when it has. Is it cherry blossoms?
Yep, March, April. Yep.
Yeah, but it only happens for like a week, so it's like something you got to like plan. Well, but if you're going, I want to go. So if Will's going, I want to go. I think we should go for the cherry blossoms. So if that happens, I want to put that in there. Now
I got a lot of points. Let's go.
Let's go. I'm saving my points up too. Let's go. Now we talked about a lot today, and I bet that you've never had a podcast like this one or interview like this one where they ask this kind of questions. But is there anything you wanted to discuss that was on your sticky note that we didn't? Anything you want to talk about that you didn't talk about? I want to make sure that you had the ability to get some stuff off your chest there.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I appreciate this. Yeah, this is, a lot of times when I jump on different interviews or podcasts, it's more really, really professional, which is fine by me too. They have ask a lot of different types of questions. I appreciate that you trying to get to know me as a person. I do feel like there's a lot of people that have this idea and image of me based on maybe some of the comments I put on Facebook or just my Instagram profile. And of course, social media is social media, right? We all exaggerate those sunsets, make it a little bit brighter, make the colors more vibrant. And sometimes it's like people think that kind of that highlight reel of who I am is who I am. It's very not. I mean, I'm very much down to earth. In a lot of ways, I don't actually. It's so funny. So many people have come up to me and they're like, once they meet me, they're like, "Oh, you're much more grounded. I thought you'd be the guy that drives, a Porsche, has 10 different Porsches, and I only eat caviar on everything, and all I do is go to Vegas clubs and just bottles and models, right?" That's what they will say. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's definitely not my life. I enjoy just, as I said, meeting people, the simple things. I'll grab a beer or a coffee. I'll drink Bud Light with you. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I don't need super fancy stuff. I'll drink Starbucks coffee, Folgers coffee. It doesn't matter because that stuff to me is just the people I'm with is more important than anything else. And it's people are often surprised because I'll tell you that I almost feel like I succeed because I don't think about the money as much. I do a little bit because it needs to, for the business, but I often tell people that I can live off of a $40,000 salary. You know how I know this is because for the first few years of me being a practice owner, that's what I did.
That's what you did.
All the money I took, I reinvested. So I actually I live a much more humble life than people think. Probably more recently, then I've been able to maybe enjoy more nice things. I would say since I got married, because it's not just me, right? Right. And that's where I want to make sure, like I said, the family is taken care of, even if me individually don't have certain needs and wants, but, I want to set myself up. I want to set the family up for the future. But, the one thing I will always tell people is just always, understand that we are in a very special profession. I mean, this is coming from someone who, as I said, I have the love, I have the passion for it, but I didn't always even know what it was, right? I didn't know, it barely existed to me as a person until right before I really jumped in. And, this is actually, one of the more defining moments in my life actually probably happened a few years ago. And this is before I was a practice owner, in that kind of gap between where I didn't quite become a practice owner yet. And I remember I was meeting with a friend who I'd known since middle school. So it's middle school, high school, undergraduate. We went to the same school. I went into healthcare. He went into investment banking. So he makes a ton of money, right? Up in the Seattle area. And so this is before I bought my first practice. So I was still trying to figure it out. I didn't have as much money, and he was making $300,000-$400,000 a year. He had 2 houses in Seattle. He had a beautiful young baby, toddler. He was like, to me, I was like, oh my, this is the perfect life. You did it. You made it. And I've known you since we were in 6th grade. And we had not seen each other in a little while. I went up to visit, and we grabbed lunch together, and we were just talking, kind of just catching up, chit-chatting. And at one point he got really, really kind of somber. I'm like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And he just kind of looked at me and he said, you know what? I'm really jealous of you. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you have such an amazing life. Like, I wish I was you. And here I am thinking, I want to be you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not making that much money. You're making a lot more money than me. And you have, I said, multiple houses. You own multiple houses. You have a family. You're like, I'm just getting started. I went to grad school. You didn't have to do that. You're living the life from my perspective. And then he goes, no, you don't get it. It's like, I hate my life. He's like,
not happy.
Like, he's like, my main job is that I go around for my company, looking around, finding like weak companies, and we'll do like a hostile takeover, and we will take a company, we'll sell it for parts for a profit, and we'll put 1,000 families out of a job. And I get a bonus for that.
Wow.
So he's like, I get to destroy people's lives, and I got a bonus for that. He's like, you get to help people. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I hate my life so much. I hate myself so much. I wish I was you. That was a really profound moment for me, because I was just thinking, wow, like, sometimes we think about that money and we think about that beautiful life that we want to have, but you're like, that's why I said, like, part of it is not just the business. That's important, but it's almost like the heart and soul of who you are, right? And the profession. Like, you have to always remember that. I feel like we're very blessed, very, very blessed. Optometry gives us so much options. It gives us so many ways we can live our lives. And if you want to be the one that owns 100 practices, clearly that's a possibility.
Right.
Or you could just be an associate for the rest of your life and be happy. Or you can own a sublease, or you can own whatever. There's so many things. You can work 2 days a week, 3 days a week and be happy and make decent money. You can work 7 days a week, 80-hour weeks and make a ton of money, right? There's no wrong answer here. And it does so much for you. And the fact that we get to choose our destinies, the fact that we can to design our lives around that is a beautiful thing, because most people don't get that privilege. Right? You work in a job in many other professions, you're told what to do. You don't have a choice, right? You can maybe leave for another job, and that's the most power you have, but your day-to-day is controlled by somebody else pretty much for the rest of your life. And that sucks. And if they tell you to hurt people in order to be more successful, you'll have to make that decision. And some people make that decision, and they do that. And that was an interesting moment. And that was probably about a year before I bought the first practice. So I always keep that in stride as well too, that this is a beautiful profession. It's not perfect in any sense. There's so many issues that we have that people talk about every single day. But for it as a whole, it has allowed me to do so many things. It has allowed me to hit all those things I always wanted, which is be my own boss, control my own destiny. I get to help people. I get to make a difference, and I get to meet people. Like, I love this profession, and I hope that people do too. So one of the things that kind of bothers me is when I meet some of the older, more established doctors, and you can see where there used to be a love, and that love died somewhere down the line, and they just like, it doesn't matter to me, and this is just a means to a living now. And that's sad to me sometimes that happened to somebody.
Well, you and I are going to keep the joy in this profession, and we're going to keep having fun. How can companies that got to know you now, and they get to know the real Will, if they want to get a hold of you, they want to connect with you, because now they get to see the real person, about the person behind the social media there. How should people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about how you grow your practice, or if they want to buy one of your if they want to buy one of your optical illusions in another country or in another state, they want to open up one of the franchises. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, as I say, all the traditional routes work for me. I in LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, probably by far, if you message me on Facebook, I'm probably the most consistent on that nowadays. But obviously, if anybody listening, Adam is an amazing person. He's done so much for me, and he's been somebody I've been blessed to have in my life. And if there's an opportunity, of course, please share my information with anybody you feel appropriate. But it goes likewise. I pointed people your direction because I'm like, Adam's your guy. So I feel very blessed that you've invited me to be here because, honestly, I think so many people could learn from you, and so many people will thrive because you are the type of guy who doesn't just say, it's all about me. You always look to the person to your right and to your left and say, how can we all get better together? And so I appreciate just being in your circle.
Thanks, man. This is wonderful. Now, if anybody has stayed for an hour and a half discussion, that means you like the conversation. If you like the conversation, I need you to like, subscribe, share, send it to a friend. Don't just talk about it. Send the link to a friend and be like, hey, you need to get to know Will a little bit better. Listen to this. If you got to watch it, listen to it in the shower. If you need to do it on your drive to work, listen to this conversation. Thank you so much, Will. Stick around. We're going to talk some more.
Yep.
And now I'm going to come here. And now this podcast here is sponsored by me. So I need you to go on Amazon and get the Play Chess Not Checkers Practical Guide to Warm Start Your Dream Optometric Practice. This is on Amazon. You also get it on Audible. Okay. So if you want to learn how to grow your practice and how to start your practice, this is the book for you. So look it up, buy it, connect it, share, tell a friend. Okay. And now I'm going to have my tip the hat moment. And my tip the hat moment today is going to be to a company. I recently went to a dinner with Dompe, and I've heard about the company. We've have quite a few patients share, been prescribed the medication, everything. But I want to tip my hat to them for a different reason, because they are doing what is difficult. A lot of times in optometry or in healthcare, companies only want to do the easy. And whenever there's a new idea or a new concept that comes out, it's always like, that's too hard. That's too hard. That'll never get done. That's too expensive. Dompe is taking neurotrophic keratitis and saying, I know it's difficult, but it is the right thing to do. I know it's not going to be easy. I know it's going to be expensive, but we got to help the patients. So I want to tip my hat to them and say thank you. Thank you for doing what is difficult. And I will challenge other companies out there, don't give up. Don't just do the easy. Sometimes the hard, difficult things are the thing that needs to be done. So I tip my hat to you, Dompe. I hope more companies follow in your lead. Thank you. If you guys stick around this long, I thank you. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think of the content. I try to let everybody talk and have their own space. And I got to learn some things. He's my personal friend, and I got to learn some things from him today. I hope you did as well.
Hey, family. If you enjoyed this full podcast, don't miss out on more engaging content. Check out the next episode right here. And for the latest updates, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to us. Catch us in the next episode. Peace.